I am very excited to have Ayub with us today, VP of Sales and CSS&B at RingCentral. I met Ayub years ago when he was at Bitly, I believe, and we've been kind of jamming on all things AI, sales, PLG, all the things since. So this is an honor to have him on the podcast today. Before we dive in, just quick introduction for those of you who have not joined us before. This is your chance to ask incredible go-to-market leaders like Ayub any of your burning questions about go-to-market. I have a lot of good questions prepared on our favorite topic of AI and sales. But before we dive in, Ayub, thank you for being here. I would love to hear a quick introduction to who you are before I start probing you with questions.
Thank you. Thank you. First off, I appreciate the introduction. Very rarely do you come across a person that you stay in touch with long time after and get valuable insights from. So I appreciate, just our friendship and just knowing each other over the years.
Yeah.
So I've had the pleasure of most recently jumped back to RingCentral, which we'll get into, I'm sure, as SVP of Sales and Success. And so my mantra here is I get to lead the charge from customer coming through the door all the way through their hopefully not exit, but their customer lifecycle journey. And it's a good opportunity to see the customer at every stage and see where our technology, where we can fit in. So it's been nothing but good so far.
It's amazing. Let's actually start there. So you started at RingCentral, you then went to Bitly, came back to RingCentral a bit after. Tell us about those career moves because I love when I see people, what is it called? Boomerang? Go back to their original. Tell us about, that journey of going to a smaller company then back to a larger company.
Yeah, it's when I first started at RingCentral, I think 13 years ago now. So as my kids say, when the dinosaurs were out, right? So I took a step back from my career and no, I wasn't in tech. I came from a consumer product company and realized, hey, the market just isn't gonna allow me to get back in leadership yet. So I have to take a step back to take a few steps forward. So I joined RingCentral as an account executive. This was 2012. And so, throughout it, I was one of their first US sales individuals. And it was a real good opportunity to again sharpen my pencil and start from the ground floor and work my way up. And good luck. It was luck in and just, sheer working hard, understanding where I can improve. I was able to go from one of the first sales reps to an organization that scaled to over $1 billion. And so there was, the scale all between, which I'm sure we'll get into, but then there became that time to where, I grew up. It was time to leave the nest. And so I jumped on an opportunity and, part of that opportunity was at Bitly. And it was really hard to leave Bitly. It gave me an experience that I really hadn't had before. A lot of PLG, moving forward from PLG to PLS, and so there was things I was learning every single day, and just the culture in that org phenomenal. It was a people first culture. Not saying RingCentral isn't, but Bitly really showed you. So leaving there was difficult. There's also the leaving portion and there's the ego portion. And I think I mentioned this to you. I am very fortunate that my wife turned to me and said, "Hey, can you put your ego to the side? If you think you can make a difference, then have the leap of faith." Not only that, I was actually going back to a team that I was familiar with. So after a lot of consternation, I decided, hey, I know this team, I know the people on it. If I'm going to make this jump, I'm not going to get the opportunity every year. Typically, these roles take 2 to 3 years. I jumped in and said, let's do it. And so, by the time I left RingCentral, I was leading our mid-market and under org on the sales front. When I came back, I got a wider opportunity, which was everything mid-market and under for us. I get to lead again from inception all the way through customer lifecycle journey.
Incredible. There's two things I want to probe on, and I did not prepare you for this question, but I was very interested. Um, you mentioned kind of sometimes you need to take a step back to move forward. And you also mentioned you have to put ego aside. I wanna unpack that a little. Like, how do you know when's the right time to, quote, unquote, "take a step back to move forward," or when you're making decisions based on ego or based what's actually right for you?
Yeah. It's a great question. It's a hard one, right? Because there's those periods where you feel something's right, but it might not be. So, when I first joined the organization, it was like kind of level set with myself of, hey, here's where you're at. Here's the challenges you have in front of me. Again, that 13 years ago was, look, you're not going to get that role. You believe in yourself. Do you feel you can do it? Why not take a step back? Show that you can actually take a few steps forward. Uh, so, I don't think the decision's ever easy. It's really balancing internally. Again, and I also have a great support network. I like to bounce ideas off people, as you know. I'll ping you sometimes too often, but you're a wealth of knowledge between peers, between friends, between even at home, my wife having, knowing me. I'll take advice from anyone, and I have always done that. It's something I've appreciated. Uh, it's that point to where we're all highly successful individuals at some point to why we've gone here, or others have gone places, to where you create this ego. And the hardest part is the first part for me, I should say, is breaking that of, hey, look, just because you're jumping back to a company you've been at previously, it doesn't mean you're any different, or it doesn't mean it's a step back. And then again, going back to that support network, I have people around me that are smarter than me in some areas, and like, so I listen to them. And so I gotta say, it's a good way to always check your ego. It's a good way just to have internal reflection, just on who you are and what you want. And I constantly do that. It's not a one time.
All right, I'm going full off track because I love this thread. So, how do you find two-part question. How do you first find these mentors or peers that you trust their advice? And the second is, when do you listen to them and when do you don't? Because there's a little bit of, you have to trust yourself and what you make versus because you know yourself better than anyone versus these geniuses that are a couple steps ahead in my career or whatever that looks like that you might want to also lean into their advice.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the people I look for guidance or bounce things off of come from all different spectrums of when I've met them in my life. And I say life, not career, because I have a cousin who's, very well known, high title at AT&T, who I've known since I was born. And he's just had that level of experience, and he's older than me, and always have the conversation of, here's where I'm at. So that's, one of the lifetime I inherited through family. And it's evolved to more friendship, more business. Then I have people that I've met through even my mom's network. My mom was in sales. And a lot of her network was in sales. And the crazy part is I still keep in contact with some of those people because we just like I very much enjoyed the conversation. Um, then of course there's people that I've met personally in my career. And it's where, through RingCentral, through Bitly, through long before that, even I started in healthcare, I still keep in touch with people. For me, it's a good opportunity to have an array of people. That way you get different perspectives. Uh, but it's also the balancing of that perspectives. Because I've done things where I've asked too many people and I've gotten too much feedback, and it's almost drowned me with making a decision because I am bouncing off here and there. Um, for me, I like to think I'm organized, so I like to jot down these things. I like to weigh my pro and cons, and then I also like to balance it internally with myself. Um, and I'm odd in this way. I'll ask my 11-year-old for advice too because I know he's going to be unfiltered. Hey, Daddy, you should just do it. And so it's you have to sift through a lot of the feedback you get. One thing I think a lot of people are fortunate with is there's an array of people who want to help. It's balancing it with what you feel is going to be best for you. Because at the end of the day, you know yourself best, and you know what's going to work for your family, your friends, your personal life, etc. So I always make it a point to balance and not over-index on one way or the other. I use it as reference point, not decision.
That is an incredible, incredible answer. Thank you. That's, really, really thoughtful, and I appreciate the kind of perspective and acknowledging, a lot of people have different opinions and you want to go to multiple people. And I love the story with your cousin and you have that connection. I think something that you said of going to your kids, sometimes it's just about talking to someone out loud. Like I often find, I get advice from other founders or coaches or board members, and sometimes just going to a friend that knows nothing about tech and just playing it out and getting a response can be more helpful than anything. So
Absolutely.
I think that's really, really good advice. All right, let's go back to the topics that everyone is talking about now, besides me going off going a bit rogue with you. So you've been in sales for a while now, and a lot has changed. Tell me what has changed, and then I'm going to ask you what has stayed the same.
Okay. So what has changed? I'll go back to one of my first jobs, right? It's taking that large 400 pounds, 400-page document of just names, phone numbers, and maybe where they lived. And it's sifting through them, writing on paper using, highlighter to color code. And that's how I'd identify who worked or not and call down a list. And so, through the graduation of my career, then we moved to CRMs. And one of my first CRMs was Siebel. And when I look back at Siebel right now, I'm like, oh, it taught me well, but it was an interesting time. And so even going through using CRMs, I was able to gather, have more streamlined ways of documenting these interactions. No longer having 50 workbooks that I had to sift through notes. It allowed me to focus on, at that moment, what seemed most
Mhm.
important. Then you kind of accelerate. And look, I believe we're in like the golden era of sales and success, um, to where nowadays I'm balancing through how much. And so I and my reps, my team, we have access to things like insights. Like who should I call? No longer call down alphabetical order, but hey, here's a propensity that's going to show you. Here's the first person to call. And you know what? You don't have to take notes anymore. We're gonna turn this on. It's gonna take notes to you. It's gonna send it to you, and it'll even load it to your CRM. And so now I've gone from a level to I was productive back then, through sheer brute force and hard work, but there's an acceleration of productivity. I can do more in less time. That allows me to focus more on areas that I should be focusing while removing some of the work that, AI gives us the luxury of doing. And so it's a complete transformation. And the acceleration over the last year, I'd even say a year and a half has been amazing to see, especially with the trajectory to come. Second part of the question, like what stayed the same? Um, I'm still a 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. kind of person, which I got to figure out to cut down. Doesn't stay. The organization doesn't stay. You still got to learn your craft. You still got to absorb these new tools. Like that never changed, right? I was always excited to be the first one to raise my hand to say, "Hey, that's a cool new tool. Can I try it?" And that excitement just has held true throughout. And that dedication to the craft is something to where I've ensured that I've never personally let go.
Mm. I appreciate that. Hard work doesn't go away in the era of AI. And the reality is it's, sure, maybe AI will make you more productive, but I think when it comes to or it definitely will make you more productive, but when I think it comes to sellers, it's not going to be, okay, you now get to work less. It's going to be you can actually have larger books of business or you can close more revenue with AI. So I appreciate that. So something that you mentioned, AI is changing the way that we sell, the way technologies develop, the way we work faster than anything has over the last decade or so or more. What is your process for evaluating and staying current on everything AI development when it feels like every month, every day, every week, something new is happening?
Yeah. Um, there's a few different things that I try to. I mean, I read a lot. Um, even books that are sitting around, I'll pick them up and read out. And to, it's interesting because I feel reading gives me insights into what's potentially coming, but then I'll also go look at, forums like LinkedIn, forums that, I have with peers, and it always helps to bounce off or go to these sessions where what's coming? What are you using? What works for you? I've also been very fortunate, as I'm sure several of us have here too. I have a team that is very hungry and eager to explore AI, to explore new opportunities.
Mm.
I can't catch everything, but I have, our SDR BDR leader here, Greg. Greg's sending me something new just about every week of what we should look at. Uh, Now, my budget unfortunately doesn't allow me to buy them all, but it's not only myself having to do the research, it goes back to that peer group I mentioned, and then it's also there's people that are so passionate, like Greg as an example, that he's always looking through and bouncing ideas off him, having conversations of where he is going. It's always good to get that multiple different uh, areas that you can go down to get guidance or advice.
Greg is phenomenal. So I appreciate that of having really smart people that you work with that are very in the weeds that can bubble up interesting tidbits for you. I'd be curious any good reads recently that folks on the line should or forums or groups that people should pay attention to.
There's a few groups that I'm in that are more GTM society groups that are interesting. I'll send those to you, and you can send it out to
Yeah.
um, there's, you know, I think there's a few books. There's one book. I actually heard a gentleman that named Zach, who was one of the first GTM individuals at OpenAI, and I had the chance to listen to him. And so he has a book coming out that will be interesting as well, and his perspective on it. And then there's even like this is completely off topic, but I mentioned my 11-year-old. He started reading this book, and I was like, oh, I saw it on the counter. I'm like, hey, let me read it to see if I can start having conversations with them. And this book's called Scythe, and it's about how AI takes over,
Oh,
not in a bad way, but it just starts. It gives people more freedom. It gives people more liberties to start doing things that potentially where I see AI going. Like it's not only going to be sales or success. I think there's other aspects that AI will help us with, including like medicine, including um, I should say just about everything. And this book was just so fascinating. It opened up actually my mind to what are the potentials. There's not just narrow focus that I know, which is sales and success in a SaaS company, but there's so many different applications. So I try to absorb everything I can. Um, I'll read just about anything anyone sends me. So I'll send you a list of books that have
I would
interest.
love that.
But again, it's just that different approaches, different readings, different things help out.
I agree. Having a broad range of different things that you can capture and gain insight into is very, very helpful. But I go through periods where I'll read a lot of books more on like leadership and CEOs and building teams and founders. I find most of the reading on sales tech and AI is it's more helpful to live it than read it. To be honest, like, I find it more helpful on those topics to listen to podcasts or connect with other founders or connect with other experts in this field, connect directly with, uh, potential buyers of the Focus product to understand how they're thinking, and then how do I map that to what our engineers are building. So, I'm sure there's more reading I can do in the world of AI, but I find that in this age where very few people are actually experts, it's helpful to just get your hands on things versus reading about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which actually might be a good segue into the next topic, which is I've seen a lot of different perspectives and organizations on how you adopt AI. So I see some companies, they say, this is the top down mandate. We don't want tool sprawl. We just want to pick one solution, two solution, and then demand our team uses it. On the other side, we see, let's let all of our reps just use whatever AI solution they want. don't care how chaotic it becomes. We want it to bubble up to the top. And I actually see more than ever really different approaches and like really different ways of handling this. I'd be curious where you lean on the spectrum from taking a top down approach to a bottom up approach.
Yeah, I balance both actually. So there's some tools like RingCentral has our own AI tools that's like table stakes. You got to use, right? Then there's tools that I find fascinating, and so I will go explore. Or we have an AI council, just like many companies do right now, and they'll say, "Hey, here's what we're thinking." Then we do a top down mandate. It's one of my least favorite mandates, just FYI. And if we do that, I have one thing that we must do, which is people must test it that are going to use it every day to identify how it works in their workflow, and how they can use it. So that's even like when we have a corporate mandate to do something, it's still I have to have people test it. I have to find things, and I want feedback on it before we deploy it. Uh, so that's one aspect. Then I also, go back to Greg as a perfect example of on my team. I like people to bring things to us. I like us to test. And remember, it's test in a very small pocket
Mhm.
before we go full investment on it. And so we actually do a lot of that to where we'll do test in small silos where we can get good feedback. We can ensure it's the right product for us. The latest article running around by MIT is like, a, I appreciate that guidance, but I don't necessarily agree with it. And part of that is the approach that you can take is different. That's going to set you up for success. And what I found is that methodology, we still have a long journey to go. That methodology at least has helped us stay up to date, test out things to ensure they're going to work. Um, and there's some tests that don't work, and we're perfectly fine with it. But at least we know what's going to work for our organization and our problem that we have to solve.
Yep. I really appreciate that approach. And I'd be curious, maybe the other end, what do you think a lot of sales leaders might get wrong about AI adoption?
Yeah, I think we all get really excited about things, and when we get excited, our mind somehow gets stuck into them, right? It actually goes back to the ego conversation that we had sometimes. Like when I think something's right, there's no way to talk me off. And then we don't test it, we don't get others' opinions, and then either we go, "Oh, wow, I messed this up," or, something must be wrong with the company that we deployed, or we didn't deploy it right. And totally not. It's you just gotta be real with what you want, what problem
Mhm.
you're solving. And then again, according to me, just go in and test it, have openness, and that's been my winning recipe. But I have been also stuck in that stage where I'm like, "This is gonna work. No way this doesn't work." You know what? Doesn't work.
Yep.
I'm typically the person that should have vetted it out better.
Yep. And it's never been harder, I think, to know what works or doesn't right now. Because everything's so new, with AI. Even if you're 4 years old as a company or 3 years, whatever, it's still very new in the broad spectrum of, like, figuring out what is needed. So, yeah, it's super, super interesting. I Oh, go ahead.
No, it's a question I actually ask you, right? I'm like, "Hey, like, we're using Focus here, or we're considering using Focus here. Like, what changed? I talked to you X months ago,
Yeah,
and it's the amount of innovation is absolutely this is why this is a renaissance period for AI. It's just the amount of things that can change even in a month. The level you all are innovating, even RingCentral, the level we're innovating, it's always good to go back and go back to the people and say, "Hey, I'm using this product here. What else could I do?"
100%. I think also, especially in the world of AI, new tech innovation, it's going from this would take a year to this then takes a month to
Yeah,
create. And so it's just a constant reevaluating and re-understanding and kind of understanding not only what the product is today, but what will the product be in 6 months, 12 months, because things move so quickly. Um, I'd be curious for you, different topic with last 5 minutes.
yeah,
So for RingCentral, you're in a very competitive space. And in the world of AI, we just talked about everything's being shipped faster than ever before, and maybe some of the marketing language seems the same. How do you create differentiation for your team when things are changing so fast?
Yeah, one thing we've deployed is look every using our tools internally, using all our tools beta internally. Um, it helps us get real life use cases, which can then help us innovate at a faster clip. I know a lot of companies do this, but not only does it help us do that, but it helps us tell the story. Because part of this is also, especially in our industry, where look the phone portion of it, the meetings portion of it's really commoditizing.
Yeah.
But the new entry is AI, and everybody has their own flavor to it. So what I've noticed is the more my team uses it, there's of course enablement, which helps out, but the more our teams use it, the more we innovate for our customers, their use cases, and our internal use cases, because 7,500 employee company, so we're a decent size of where our market is. Um, the better adoption we get on people selling it, people being able to navigate the story, and we can solve more of our customers' challenges or problem statements. Some problem statements they might not even know. And if we can do that, uh, it's always a rat race because the next company might do it a little bit better. Then we have to find out, hey, what's the latest pain point to where we can interject. We just launched this product for me selfishly because I was extremely involved. It's been one of the most successful that I've seen in my 30, and it's an AI receptionist, which is streamlining a lot of your work. It's allowing you not to miss your customers' calls. It's allowing you to take off a lot of the legwork. And so when we launched that product, we had our internal teams use it. We did a lot of testing. We really got the messaging right, but we had to move fast because the market's moving faster than we can move at. So we accelerated, we got the feedback we did in a short window, and now we continue to iterate to identify what's the next leg in this conversation. I think it's a lot of what several companies are dealing with because it might be a commodity. You might not be a commodity today, but tomorrow you potentially can be, especially as the space gets more saturated. So what can you keep innovating as? Again, we're backing this awesome.
It's amazing what you can do when you just say, instead of launching in 3 months, we're going to launch in 1 month.
Yes.
Just pulling timelines forward. I do that to my team all the time and love it. And so when you say were you actually testing the product and part of the product roadmap discussions?
Yes, I was.
Very cool.
It's here's what we're hearing, here's what we think it can solve. I mean, if it doesn't solve anything, it might be a good idea for the future, throw it away. But you got to really solve the pain points and what I'll call um, legacy ways of doing things that they're not essentially they're increasing productivity. They're allowing you to have more interactions with people, with customers, and so you always got to look at it from a lens of what problem can we solve. That's always been extremely helpful for us.
Yeah, and I love, how close you are then working even with a large organization. I don't see that often, being able to have direct feedback on what to build, but then also the testing and what we call drinking our own champagne. Be able to actually, be the alpha testers of a product. You always see that in startups, but not as much big companies, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And that energy, I mean, you're in the throes of it too, right? That energy is like irreplaceable. It's just watching people go in that short window. I actually had a lot more hair when I started. That that have just
Your
accelerated.
hair looks great.
The things people can do in short time when they're all motivated, it's impressive. And again, this is an example. It's not just me, but it's a team that's willing to take feedback.
100%. I think that's a really good note to wrap up the conversation. Thank you so much. This was incredible. I know we went completely off topic, but it was an awesome conversation. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely appreciate it. Thank you, Alexa.
Thanks all.